Hello and welcome to HippoHQ. I'm your host Paul, and this is a deck tech for a vehicle assault deck for the Kaladesh standard block. I'm aware Kaladesh is about to fall out of standard, which is kind of sad. I love the artwork, I love the vehicles. Each set I like to create a champion deck for it, and this is what I found to be my favourite for Kaladesh. So we're going to go through what I have put into this deck, why I've put it in, and how many copies you should have. To begin with, we will go with the land. Every MTG player needs a good land base in order to be able to play properly. If you get mana flooded, you have nothing to cast. If you get mana screwed, you have nothing to cast with. So a good land will definitely win you more games than good cards. To begin with, we have 4 copies of Clifftop Retreat. Yeah, this is a pretty standard dual land. It comes in tapped unless you control a mountain or a plains. We'll be playing a decent amount of both, so you should have no issues bringing this in untapped. And being dual land, it should tap for both. Next one is Inspiring Vantage. This one I only have 2 of, simply because it comes in tapped unless you control 2 or fewer lands. So ideally you will have at least 1 or 2 of these in your hand to begin with. That way you can play it straight from the word go and you won't have to bring it in tapped. Once again, dual land, red or white. Then we have 2 copies of Inventors Fair. It is a legendary land. I have it in there for 2 reasons. One is, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more artifacts, you gain life. Well, most of what we will be playing are vehicles or artifacts, so you should be gaining some life out of this. The other one is 4, and tap this, sacrifice the Inventors Fair, search your library for an artifact, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. This is very important if you are missing a key piece of the engine to get rolling. With it, you can pretty much bring out any card you want. Well, any vehicle you want. Then we have the stock standard mountain and plains. I like to have full art land, I just like it. So I've chosen the Zendikar land, and yeah, all up 24 land. That should be enough that you won't get too mana starved or mana screwed. I have yet to play any game where I've had less than 3 land out on the field, which is enough to play most of the big cards in this deck. Occasionally I will get a little bit too much, but that's the way Magic rolls. So we move on to our creatures. We are playing primarily dwarfs. In fact, they are all dwarfs, simply because of the synergistic value of the dwarfs. Right, from tier 1 we have Toolcraft Exemplar. This is an amazing card, with most of everything else we have being vehicles or artifacts. It is pretty much going to be, on your combat phase, a 3-2. Which, for a 1-drop to be able to crew something big like a Skysovereign, that is pretty good. It also has the ability to get first strike if you have 3 or more artifacts. So once you no longer need it to crew vehicles, you can actually start swinging in, and that 3 damage goes into the opponents before they can retaliate, meaning he's going to survive quite some time. The second dwarf we have is Renegade Wheelsmith. Now this one is quite a nice dwarf. It is a little expensive, 1 colourless, 1 red and 1 white. However, when it becomes tapped, a target creature cannot block. That is the key thing when it is tapped. So you can tap this guy to crew a vehicle, should be able to crew pretty much anything you have within reason, and you're denying your opponent a blocker. It's something, at first I was playing with it, I didn't quite read that, I thought it was when it attacked, so I only ever used him on the offensive. Then when I realised it's when he becomes tapped, the whole world just opened. The next dwarf I have is 1 red, 1 white, and that is your Veteran Motorist. Now, this is a very, very nice card. Probably one of the nicest dwarfs I've come across. When it comes in, it scries 2. Now, for 2 mana to scry 2, that on itself is amazing. However, it has another ability. When it crews a vehicle, that vehicle gets +1/+1. So this guy, he will die to most things. Do not use him as an attacker, because a 1/1 will kill him, and you've lost quite a lot out of that. However, having 3 power, he can crew your Skysovereign Flagship. There's pretty much nothing that one or two of these guys cannot crew, and you get two of them in, you've got the largest vehicle in play, crewed, getting +2/+2. That is amazing. The last dwarf we have is Depala, Pilot Exemplar. She is the same as the Renegade Wheelsmith, a colourless, a red and a white, and her abilities give every dwarf, which is every other creature we have, a +1/+1, and each vehicle a +1/+1 as long as it's a creature. She also has another ability when she is tapped, once again tapped, not attacking, so if she taps to crew a vehicle, you may pay X. If you do, reveal the top X cards of your library. Put all dwarfs and vehicles among them into your hand. Put the rest at the bottom of your library. Well, you're playing pretty much all dwarfs and vehicles, so you can pay 3. You've got 3 dwarfs, 3 vehicles into your hand. That is amazing. That's brilliant card draw. So we have 4 of each dwarf, with the exception of our Pilot Exemplar, in which we only have 2 of. She is a legendary creature, you can only have 1 of her on the battlefield. I find 2 is enough to generally see her, at least 1 of her, most matches. If the match goes on a bit too long, you could draw your second, but statistically you should be seeing 1 of her in most games. Moving on to the very last creature we have is an artifact creature. This will prop the Toolcraft Exemplars +2/+1, and this is the Bomat Courier, and we will be playing a full playset of him. This is just a brilliant little artifact. Comes in, you can play him on turn 1 with haste, swinging in for 1 on turn 1. His ability means that every time he swings you have to exile a card. It kind of sounds a bit annoying that way, but I've found you keep him swinging until they can put up a defense, then you just hold him back, let him crew some vehicles, and if they want to ping him, just cost 1 red, you discard your hand, which by mid-game you're probably only top decking anyway, and suddenly you've got your hand full again. I don't know how many times I have played him and just used his ability to repopulate my hand with cards I want. If I am mana flooded, I'll just toss the mana out I don't need, get a whole bunch more cards, and start with a fresh hand. It is such a versatile card. Now the last part of this particular set are the vehicles. We are only running 10 vehicles. It's not much in a vehicle deck, but I think these vehicles are pretty darn powerful. Out of that you have, at 1 mana drop, a 7/11. This is the Consulate Dreadnought. Now it requires 6 to crew, but pretty much any dwarf you have, 2 of those dwarfs will instantly be able to crew a Consulate Dreadnought. 7/11, that is pretty good. However, if you want to use your dwarfs for other stuff, we have the Peacewalker Colossus. This card is just, when I found it, my mind was blown. It is a colourless and a white to give another target vehicle you control, turn it into a creature. So that means on turn 3 you play your Peacewalker Colossus, you have your Consulate Dreadnought out, or maybe by this time you have 2 Consulate Dreadnoughts. Turn 4 you play another land. As long as you have 2 white lands, you are swinging for both your Consulate Dreadnoughts for 7. You don't have to crew them, they crew themselves. And I mean, that's 14 damage in your face at turn 4. That cannot be beaten. It does not proc itself. However, you get 2 Peacewalker Colossus, the same thing can happen. Each one can crew the other one. So you're not swinging for 14, you're swinging for 12, but wow. The last vehicle we are running is my uber favourite. It is the Skysovereign Consul Flagship. Now this is a flying. Whenever the Consul Flagship enters the battlefield or attacks, you got to remember it's or attacks, it will deal 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. That is pretty much lightning strike on a vehicle. You swing in, it will do a lightning strike. You bring it into the battlefield, it will do a lightning strike. It only requires 3 to crew, and it is a 6/5 flying. So any dwarf can instantly crew this vehicle. Suddenly you're flying in with a 6/5 that does a lightning strike. I mean, that is just amazing. It's unbeatable. So many games I have played have just just destroys them. There's no other words around it. It is amazing. So the numbers we have, the Consulate Dreadnought and the Peacewalker Colossus are sitting at 4 each, and once again, as the Skysovereign is a legendary, you can only have one on the battlefield at a time, so I've dropped him down to 2. He doesn't come out every game, but you can generally, with enough digging, with your Bomat Courier or your Pilot Exemplar, you can generally dig to a Consul Flagship and get him on the battlefield mid-game pretty regularly. And finally, we have our Spells and Enchantments. Now, this first enchantment is pretty much the linchpin. It is Siege Modification. You enhance a creature or a vehicle, and it will give that vehicle 3 and first strike. Which doesn't really sound too amazing. +3 and first strike on a Bomat Courier. Yeah, it makes it a 4/1 first strike, or on a Dwarf, it makes it reasonable. Its big key is, as long as that enchanted permanent is a vehicle, it becomes a creature. So once again, turn 3, you have a Consulate Dreadnought on the battlefield. It costs 1 to put out. You suddenly play a Siege modifier on it. You are playing a Consulate Dreadnought that is swinging in for 10/11 first strike damage on turn 3. 2 of those swings, you've won the game. I have been playing this combo in MTG Arena for the last few days, and the amount of times on turn 3 I attach the Siege modifier to the Consulate Dreadnought and the opponent just quits the game because they have no answer. Turn 3 to be doing 10 first strike damage is just mind-blowing. Turn 4, that's another 10, boom, game over. And last but not least, we have a 2 copy of Lightning Strike. This is primarily in there just to take out those annoying creatures. It doesn't take out everything, and I know a lot of Mardu-based decks will be using Unlicensed Disintegration. Well, I decided not to run a Mardu colour set, so there's no black in it, which means I can't run the Unlicensed Disintegration. I like that card, but I don't like having to sacrifice other colour mana for it. So this here, 3 most early base creatures will die to it. You can just wipe off a simple creature from the battlefield, swing in for full force. And the last one is, if the enemy is building too much of a board state, there is always your good old Fumigate. Now the good thing about Fumigate is your vehicles, unless they are in attack mode, which you wouldn't be able to play Fumigate anyway as it is a sorcery, they do not count as creatures, they are vehicles. So they are immune to your Fumigate. The downside is if you attach the Siege modifier to one of your vehicles, it is a creature and it will get wiped out with the Fumigate. It's a risk, but I have found there have been many times where the opponent is building a big board state. I couldn't ramp up quick enough to defeat them. It's looking a bit hairy, I could lose, so I play 1 Fumigate. I've left with a bunch of vehicles, one of them being a Peacewalker Colossus. I just use the Peacewalker's Colossus, proc it twice, swing in with the vehicles. It's win-win for everyone. Okay, so a few quick playthroughs of this particular set on either Octagon or MTG Arena or in real life. I have often found you have at least 1, possibly 2 turn 1 plays, that being hopefully your Bomat Courier or your Toolcraft Exemplar, and often a Consulate Dreadnought. It can't be crewed straight away, it does require 6 to crew, which doesn't sound worth it, but if you stick that on the board face, they're going to get scared. As soon as they see that, they know something big is coming. So I find often I will go with the Bomat Courier first and swing in. However, if you have a Bomat and a Toolcraft, put the Toolcraft out as Bomat has haste. That means on turn 2 you're swinging for 4 damage. Often they won't have a creature out by then, so 4 damage and you get to start card drawing with your Bomat. Pretty good. The next thing is your Pilot Exemplar. All dwarfs get +1/+1, so that means your Toolcraft Exemplar becomes a 2/2 during normal times, or it becomes a 4/3 during your combat phase. Well, 4/3 first strike, that's something to be reckoned with. Same with your Veteran Motorist. Get a Veteran Motorist onto the field. One of them can pretty much crew your Peacewalker Colossus single-handedly. Easily do a Skysovereign Flagship. You can have your Veteran Motorist crew the Peacewalker prop the Consulate Dreadnought, and you'll be swinging in for 2 8/8s. Both vehicles will get a +1/+1 from the Pilot Exemplar, and your Veteran Motorist will give the Peacewalker another +1/+1. So that's 16 damage in the face. Often by turn 4 or 5 you can have that out. The downsides of this deck is it is very much an aggro deck. It does suffer to control, and it does suffer to Trixie type decks. I have had it play against a couple of decks, stuff like Second Son. It will not survive to. Entreat the Angels Miracle deck, it can only just hang in there. I don't really care about what it's good at. So this deck has a lot of synergy. It is really fun to play. I like watching the dwarfs all move in. I like watching the vehicles all move in. You can have dwarfs crewing vehicles, you can have vehicles crewing vehicles, or just vehicles crewing themselves. You can control the board state a little bit. You have a decent amount of card draw with your Pilot Exemplar and your Bomat Courier. You have your pretty much lightning strike on a stick with your Consul Flagship. Anytime you swing in with that, it's just going to burn anything. Remember, that also targets Planeswalkers. That is a key thing. There have been many times where I've just targeted a small creature, forgetting that the Planeswalker is actually a valid target. So I've never really done a rating on this. I don't quite know how to rate these sort of ones. I enjoy it. I find it very fun to play with. It has stood up to a lot of decks that have been considered tournament-ready decks, including decks like Vampire Madness and Hazaroth Aggro. So if you are going to enjoy this deck, remember, go to your local gaming store and buy it from them. Talk to them, they are probably the most knowledgeable people you can ever find. Also, you're supporting them. It's a win-win for everyone. Get out there, enjoy, may you draw well, don't draw too many lands, don't draw not enough lands, and get what you want. But enjoy this deck and have fun. I've been HippoHQ, and this has been a Deck Tech. Thank you and farewell.